Thank you for tuning in to the Bearded IFA. Today's guest is Glyn Jelley from Summit Chartered Accountants. Glyn, thank you for coming along. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are absolutely welcome. Let's talk about accountancy. But before we do, let's rewind. How did you become the business leader that you are today with Summit Chartered Accountants? Where did it start?
How far back do you want me to go?
You've left school.
Okay. So in school, I thought I was going to do something sport related. So I played at a decent level of sport, football and quite a few other sports as well. Thought that was where I was going to go. Then I had a few problems with injuries, which meant I couldn't go down that route. Couldn't decide what to do, but because I like sport, I went down the route of like being a PE teacher.
Right.
So I started a degree in that. When I went to do that degree, I found it wasn't really stimulating the right parts of my brain to keep me occupied. I was getting a little bit bored with it. But I saw out my first year because you got like a certificate of education. Then at the end of that year, I went back to the uni and said, right, I'm not really enjoying my degree. Is there anything else you can think of? And they said, well, your entrance marks to get into university, you had the highest maths marks out of everyone who applied. Have you ever thought of doing anything with numbers? And I was like, no, not really. And they said, how about accountancy? So I said, that sounds good. And I started an accountancy degree.
Wow.
Did my accountancy degree. Then when I completed that, then I needed to find a firm that was willing to train me and put me through my professional qualifications. And that was a firm in Mold called Hill and Roberts. So that's where I started that phase.
Excellent. And how long were you in practice then before you thought, okay, I'm going to look at do my own thing now? How long was that?
Yeah, it was quite a long period of time, really. So despite my very youthful looks,
Boyish looks, yeah.
yeah, been doing this for 20 odd years now. So I was in Hill and Roberts for, I'm trying to think how long now, probably 12, 13 years, something like that. As part of that process, they were really supportive and gave me good experience and things. So I was like building up my knowledge alongside my chartered exams, but then dealing with clients and getting exposure to those type of things and a really varied client base. So that was great. And then one of my clients that I'd like built up over time, I suppose, was doing the design work at Media City when it was being set up, and there was a building there called the Greenhouse. And as the name suggests, it was where like small businesses go to grow. So it seemed like a really good opportunity for the firm to be the first accountancy firm over in Media City in Salford. But it was kind of a bit of an oddball for the firm because it would always been based in Wales. They were in Mold, Ruthin and Bala at the time. So they weren't massively keen on it, but in the end, they did support me with that and said that I was able to go and rent a desk there. So I started renting a desk over in Media City like one day a month or something. And then over time that became one day a week, and then eventually got our own office there. And then over a period of like 6 or 7 years there, built a small team and like an own operating office. And then within that accountancy firm, they were having a bit of a restructure and, splitting partnership a little bit. So at that point in time, I said, well, if you're splitting, this would be a good opportunity to split off myself. So at that point in time, we split off with a team of 3 and about 100 clients-ish. So yeah, it was exciting, but high risk because we were still quite small.
I think that's what always separates someone going down a business route and not going down the business route is, do you have the capacity to take that risk and to give it a go? In your case, you did. Would you do it again, looking back now?
Yeah, I think I would. There's been ups and downs and pressures along the way, but yeah, I'd definitely do it again. It's been, I don't know, always in life, I always like to like just push myself and see how far I can get. And, if anything ever happens to me at any point, I know I've just given it my all. And I think it's kind of always that whatever route I've gone down. So yeah, it was a risk at the time, but when I did split off, I split off with really good people as well. They were trainees, but probably a couple of the best trainees I've worked with.
Right.
So it gave me that kind of confidence that the standard of work we were doing is good. And because we were a fairly small client base at that time, I knew I could give like the clients the attention they needed as well. So yeah, it started well, but yeah, we were a team of 3 9 years ago, and we're a team of 52 now. So
Wow.
it's been a busy few years.
It's a big change, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll touch on some of those challenges in a second, but there's 2 things I want to sort of pull back on actually, which I thought was interesting. So being good at sports, do you think that competitive edge has been a friend to you then, in business, having that
Mm.
bit of an edge where you want to be the best and you want to win?
Yeah, I think so. I think sport helps in a lot of ways. So working within a team, I think is
Mm.
important. Knowing how to deal with different personalities from all different walks of life, I think is good. That competitive nature, but also getting used to those like knockbacks along the way as well. You have a lot of disappointments in sport, and I think that does set you up well for business because it's a hard world, isn't it?
Tough world, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's interesting. And I suppose the other thing I was going to ask you, being in Media City, obviously that part of the world's had so much development and influx of different sort of skills over the years. Has that made your client bank in that area maybe typically different to a traditional accountancy practice?
Yeah, it's been completely different, by luck and by kind of effort, I suppose. So made a real effort when we first moved there to get to know a lot of people in the area, because it was kind of the start of Media City. We were one of the first businesses there. We got to meet people as they were coming in, and that meant we were meeting like the directors in the studios and things like that, which then gave us an in to meet other people in the studios and producers, directors, things like that. We did a good job for a couple of them, and then they go and refer you to other people on their set and things. So we've ended up with like a lot in like TV and film, which from the background prior to that, I had very little in that sector. So yeah, completely different in that sense, and quite young and dynamic businesses over in Media City way.
Yeah, I imagine the energy over there is quite high in terms of, what people are about. But am I right in saying most of those sort of experts, film producers, editors, they're all mostly self-employed, aren't they? So they're all individual businesses themselves, aren't they? So I imagine that's where they probably all need an accountant, and
Yeah,
that's where there's been a good fit.
yeah. There's a lot of them that just like a limited company or a sole trader, and then off the back of that, you get like production companies and things that are producing their own film or series or something, and then they have all those subcontractors working for them. So what we've been quite good at with those production companies is being able to be a lot of things for them. So be a whole finance team for them, provide the payroll, provide the tax advice, and make sure we can support all the people that then come in and bolt on.
Like a plug-in function
Yeah,
to what they're doing.
yeah. So it's worked well.
Excellent. And obviously being good at maths has helped as well.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He says.
He says, yeah, I probably my mental arithmetic's not as good as it used to be.
Yeah, you got technology now and a calculator. It's all easy,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Looking at a team of 52 then, I probably know some of the answers here. What's been the biggest challenges growing to that number?
Mm, capacity, recruitment, and maintaining like quality of service to the clients. Because I think we've always been like client service first and then build behind that. And it's always been like we've looked after everyone so much, responded really quickly, where possible, made the client feel like the only client we've got,
Yeah.
that type of thing. And as you grow, that's a very difficult thing to do. And then kind of the pressure on myself, and there's another director called Sarah who we've almost become a little bit of a bottleneck because the client's used to dealing with us, and they almost feel like they're being passed on if you're moving them, but actually it's to maintain their level of service,
Yeah.
and to keep their price point at the right place and things like that. But often it doesn't feel like that for a client. So still not quite got it right in terms of structure. We're always learning, but yeah, I'd say those things are the most difficult things. But yeah, we're getting there, and I think everyone in business, no one's perfect with how they're doing it, but they're trying to do it perfectly.
Yeah, that's hard, isn't it? When you start a business and it's a small business, you're the figurehead, you're doing everything, you're seeing every new client. And as you've said, they get to know you and they think, oh, Glyn's always going to look after me. But there comes a point where physically you can't do that. But will it maybe get easier when you have other accountants that bring their own clients on and they're not used to dealing with you then? They're just used to dealing with Summit.
Yeah, definitely. So where possible, where new clients come on board now, we're trying to allocate the right people with the right skill set to them, the right personality,
Yeah.
because we've got a team big enough to do that. So that's less of an issue, but it's like the historical clients because you've built up, I've got 20 years worth of relationships with some people.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to make sure they're getting the service without feeling put out because you've passed them to someone else. But it always genuinely is either to keep the price point where it is or to make sure they're getting the best service. It's never just to pass someone on. It's to make sure it works.
Yeah. I think that's where historically maybe a number of firms in your space and in my space in financial services have got it wrong where they've tried to pass on clients and they've not managed it very well, and then the client just feels like a number, they're not valued. And as you said, when you built your business on value and service and that proposition, that's what you want to try and keep, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of time people don't realize. So we've built a model a little bit where everyone has like a mini manager all the way through, to make sure whoever they're speaking to is someone who knows that bit inside out, and then just more like a figurehead who has like an overview of it all about more complex like planning or something. So
Yeah.
there'll be a payroll manager looking after the payroll. There'll be someone who's responsible for their bookkeeping and VAT who knows every transaction that they have. You'll have like the person dealing with their accounts who knows that, and then the person after that who's the one that's the main point of contact, I suppose.
Right.
And really, you could swap that main person and everything else would feel the same because those people all know that business inside out. And we've tried to create it like that so people are like looked after properly, I suppose, because what I've found historically is you've got this one person who's a relationship and that's the only person they speak to. And below them, everyone's doing this work. And you ask that person a question, they don't actually know all your transactions. Sure, they can't. So we want it that people looked after at each stage, really.
I get it. You mentioned another challenge then, people, recruitment. How have you dealt with that over the years? What's worked well? What hasn't worked well?
Okay, so what's worked well? We've tried to go down. I've recruited people in the past who on paper should be really good and they might be qualified and things like that. And then
Yeah.
when they've actually come in, they're not that good. They're just good at passing exams. So what we've tried to do is go down a route where we're training people from scratch. We've put a lot of time and effort in over the years of starting people at the beginning of their accountancy training, train them all the way through, support all the way through, train our systems, they know our clients, and
Yeah.
really put those foundations in place, and they're brilliant accountants now. So that bit we've done really well. So proud of that. Biggest mistakes with recruitment have probably been not getting another senior person or two in early enough. I think when you're watching the money and making sure that you can, maintain the growth and have enough of a buffer in the business, and that where needed you can invest in equipment or you can invest in people and things like that. Probably foregone a couple of more senior people, and again myself and Sarah bridging those people working silly hours just to make sure that bit happens, where I think as if we'd invested in senior people earlier, it would have made the transition of the growth
But as you
easier.
said, it comes at a cost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A financial cost. Have you ever used recruiters?
I have.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, mixed,
Hit and miss.
hit and miss, yeah. If I could change one thing in business, it'd probably be recruiters.
What would you
And
change?
I would change that they are always on the side of the business, because I think that then benefits the people as well in the end. So one thing I've found with some recruiters, not every recruiter's, because there are some good ones, but it's almost like they're on the side of the employee and themselves. So they're telling the employee they can get them a high wage. They want to get them a high wage because they're going to get a higher percentage.
Yeah.
And they kind of fit them into a job that maybe isn't quite right for them. But then they'll go back after that same employee in 2 or 3 years' time when they see another position and go, "Oh, we've seen this position for you, did it?" And they basically
And churn it. Yeah.
repeating their fees off the back of it. Whereas I'd love it if they were always on the side of their firm going, "We're going to go and find you your team. We're on your team. We're almost like an add-on to your team. We're your recruitment agent, and we're going to make sure we're building the best team over time." I'd be inclined to use recruiters over and over if I knew they were trying to build my team. But yeah, again, hit and miss with the people who've come from recruiters. Quite often I find people who've arrived with a recruiter are going to leave with a recruiter because that's how they ended up there in the first place. So
Sure.
really mixed bag.
And it is hard, isn't it? And I imagine we've got a small team in comparison, but even at a small team level, if you bring someone in, as you said, on paper, they could be great and they could be really good at the job, but if culturally they don't fit in with the rest of the team, that can present its own challenges, can't it? So there's so many layers, isn't it, in terms of finding the right fit. It's not easy. And I think from listening to and speaking to lots of businesses, that's probably one of the biggest challenges a lot of them
Yeah.
have is people.
Yeah, I think we've changed how we recruit a little bit over the last few years. So probably say one of my biggest weaknesses is I always want to give people a chance when they're not necessarily the perfect person for the team. I think, oh, someone else, they're going to struggle to get a job somewhere else, but actually they probably just need someone to give them that opportunity. Or, they've come from this situation, they probably just need that break, or I know their personality isn't quite right, but I think if we can mold them right, they'd be this, instead of going, right, who is the perfect person for our team in
Yeah.
each situation. So we've changed a little bit with that. With when we get a CV or a person, we're looking at a certain standard of like education or intelligence, but then everything from that point onwards is like attitude and personality. Like, have they got the drive? Do you feel like they care about the business and help drive the business forward? Would they help other team members and bring other team members up rather than compete against them? And do they bring anything to the table really in terms of like personality in the office? So we've kind of switched a little bit with that.
Made it more wide in
Mm.
terms of the criteria. Cool. And then if you went back now before you started Summit and said, I will definitely not do this and I will definitely do this again, what do you think those two things would be?
Pricing is probably the thing I'd go back and change. So we've been so busy and grown so fast that we didn't ever get in a system of like how prices should increase over a period of time, like renewal periods with people and things like that. So we've got some people who've rolled in on the same prices as like 10 years ago and
Right.
things. Haven't changed anything.
In reality, the cost of doing business
So that was escalated. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
inflation for businesses is way higher than a person,
Yeah.
but like nothing's changed internally. So like the margins have got squeezed over time. Our turnover's gone up a lot,
Yeah.
but our profits have been not followed that same path really, stayed quite stable. So I'd say like a pricing offering, and I probably alongside that pricing offering would have changed how it was packaged. So there are clearer boundaries of like what you get with it and what you pay for on top. There's like scope creep, and we always just want to help everyone, but we end up just losing loads
Yeah,
of
you
money
need
on
some
jobs.
boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'd probably say that is the thing.
The biggest one then, the thing that you did well.
I think it's just being client focused with people. I think ahead of that pricing and everything we've done, it's always just been about like, can we just do a really good job? And do we look after the client? And are they happy? And how can we help them? And what does the business need? We ask loads of questions is probably a good thing. And we drill into the team. It's like, you should know who they are, who their family is, what they do, like everything you can about them, any hobbies, things like that, where they're wanting to get to with their business, like ambitions, how they want to exit, all those things. It should be, do you just know it about them? And then when you've got like a full picture, you can provide a better service. So
Yeah.
I'd say that's
Because
what
then
we
you
do
become
best.
a planner rather than just a transactional service, which
Yeah.
that's where my next question is going to be, where do you see the future of the industry and the business? And maybe that's one of the challenges is AI technology getting rid of some of that transactional stuff. So you've got to focus on the planning more.
Exactly that. So I feel really sorry for trainees coming through with AI and technology improvements, because I don't know how you'll ever learn the basics and foundations of accountancy and how it all works and what have you. But in terms of everyone who is training now or has trained, I think it's brilliant. And for clients, I think it's brilliant. So overall for accountancy, I think it'll end up more advisory. I think, you've got all your filings and compliance stuff that'll still exist, but I think it'll be slicker. All the data entry stuff will probably disappear, but
Mm.
that's where you learn how to categorize credit terms, like, how it all works within a set of accounts. But then the time that should free up should mean that for that same price point, you're able to give a much more personal service because there's more time available. It should mean that you're able to focus on advisory and spend time planning with clients. So I do think that's where accountancy's going. How it gets there will be interesting,
Mm.
and how it links with like government systems and what have you. But I do think AI will be a positive in the short to medium term. Long term, I don't know. I just don't know if it just becomes like robotic and they simplify the tax system and everything just becomes automated. And
Mm.
um,
Because they are trying to do that, aren't they? They are trying to make it more digital. It feels like my personal perspective that making it more complicated, but they do seem to want this real time of information, don't they?
do.
And the thing I found really terrifying is getting the self-employed to pay the tax before they've earned.
Yeah, it's think they've got it wrong with self-employment and the thresholds they're bringing everything in. I don't think the system's like fit for purpose. So the phase in making tax digital in with turnover of 50,000 at the moment, next year's 30,000. year after is 20,000. That's a large, like, demand on people's resource, time, systems, everything for a small amount of earning because, if that's their turnover, what's their profit? And they're having to report quarterly and do things like that. They've got to have certain software. They've got to have all these, like, systems in place.
Yeah.
I just think it's a little bit too much for them.
Too much at once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, it's one of those things. We can't control it.
We can't, and I do think we probably need another episode just to talk about tax, but that's our time up, Glyn. So
Yeah.
thank you for being a guest.
No problem
Great
at all.
to learn a little bit more about you, particularly the teaching and the sports. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. So thank you for joining me.
No, pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.